Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most photographers are working for less than minimum wage and they don't even know it. They're setting pricing based on what other photographers are charging, what they think clients will pay, or worst of all, just picking a number because it sounds good. In this video, I'm going to show you how to price your photography based on facts and not feelings, so you can book with confidence and know exactly what you need to charge to hit your income goals. I know all this because I've made every single one of these mistakes starting out. But over the last 20 years as a wedding and portrait photographer, I've built a system that not only covers my cost, but guarantees a profit. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to price your photography so you actually make money at it. So why do most photographers struggle with pricing? When I talk to other wedding and portrait photographers, I kind of hear the same thing. I hear things like, well, I looked up what that other photographer was charging in my area and I'm kind of just charging what they charge. Or they'll say something like, well, I looked up my favorite photographer and I'm just charging what they're going to charge, but less. The main problem with charging what other photographers are charging is that you don't know their situation. You don't know their income needs. You don't know that they have a partner or live at home that is covering their expenses. So they can afford to charge $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,500 a wedding and undercut everyone in the market because they live in their grandparents' basement. And nothing's wrong with that, but they will not survive and it's just a matter of time before they go away. Other things photographers will say are something like, well, I just thought $1,500 or $2,500 or $3,000 sounded good for a price for a wedding. So they just, as my old mentor Ron used to tell me, the number's PFA. They plucked it from the air. You pull it out and you take a look and say, yeah, that looks good. Something else photographers tell me, which I think is the worst one. They'll say, I was too scared to ask for more, so I just picked or set a number that I thought they would say yes to, that I thought they would book me for. Those by far end up being the worst clients. But here's the truth. None of those methods are sustainable. Copycat pricing is a race to the bottom. And you don't even know what that photographer's expenses truly are. Heck, I bet you don't even know what your true expenses are. Emotional pricing is unreliable. And worst of all, fear-based pricing just leads to burnout, resentment, and feeling undervalued. I've seen photographers work 30 to 40 hours on a wedding from beginning to end for $1,500. And what they don't realize is after expenses and taxes, they're essentially making $12 to $15 an hour. That's less than working retail or working at Starbucks. At least if you worked at Starbucks, you get a free coffee meal a day and you get some free coffee beans to take home. So how do we fix it? We start by treating photography like a real business and not just a hobby. And all this starts by knowing your real numbers. So let's look at my 5 steps for profitability in photography. And actually, this could be any business because just like my dad used to say, the numbers don't lie. Everybody will lie to you, but the numbers won't. So look at the numbers. Okay, so the 5 steps. Step 1, decide how much you really need to make per year to have a great life. Let's be realistic about it, right? If you're a photographer in Mississippi or Arkansas or Texas, we can agree that your cost of living is going to be far less than somebody in Southern California or Chicago or Northern California, San Francisco area or New York City, right? And here's where most people skip ahead. Most people set a price and they don't actually know what they need to make per year to run a sustainable life and business. They never ask themselves, how much do I need to make per year? Before I really crunched my numbers, I thought $100,000 a year was going to be perfect. But I live in Southern California in a resort town. And I have a wife and 2 kids and a dog and properties I need to get paid. And after I crunched my numbers, it wasn't $100,000 a year I needed. It was closer to 2. If I want a couple more vacations a year, a couple more investment properties, a stay-at-home wife, and my kids in private school, it needs to be closer to $250,000, right? So we need to be realistic about where our numbers need to go based on where we're at. When I left my part-time job at the camera shop years ago, the first thing I had to do was look at my real numbers to see if I could even leave. Remember, the numbers don't lie, right? So I had to break down what my actual lifestyle costs were. And that included things like rent, groceries, insurance, car payment, clothes, travel, savings, right? Let's not forget that. Essentially all of it. Then I asked myself, how much money do I need to make in photography to cover all this and still have a 3 to 6 month cushion? Because things might go bad. I don't know. I didn't know. If you want to earn $100,000 a year gross, that number has to include things like taxes, business expenses, savings, and more importantly, your take-home pay. Let's break it down like this. Maybe you need $60,000 for personal living, $20,000 for business costs, $10,000 for taxes, and another $10,000 for savings. That equals your $100,000 a year. So now that $100,000 a year isn't a dream anymore. You can now make a concrete plan to achieve that number. So the first step in pricing is to first be honest with yourself on what you actually need. Otherwise, you'll always be chasing the money instead of building the business. Step 2, we have to know our capacities. One of the biggest mistakes I see is wedding photographers or portrait photographers not even knowing their capacity. And you might not be there yet, right? You might not know that you can only shoot 25 or 35 weddings a year because you haven't done it yet. But time will teach you what this number is. For me, I'm very comfortable with 25. I like between 10 and 15 at a lot higher price. When I was really hustling, I would be 34 a year, 37 a year, but it's unsustainable for me. And I started to not offer the greatest experience. If you're a wedding photographer, most wedding photographers can't shoot 50 weddings a year. Even experienced wedding photographers struggle to shoot 50 weddings a year. You can do it with a team, you can do it with associate photographers. By yourself, 50 weddings is just too much. Most full-time wedding photographers max out at about 20 to 30 weddings a year, and that's a comfortable number. If you're doing portraits, you might be able to shoot 50 to 200 weddings a year, but it's really going to depend on your business model. I remember a high school senior photographer, he also shot families. He did about 600 sessions a year, which was ridiculous. He was in Redlands, California. I'm not sure he's still around. He would knock out 12 sessions a day. They were mostly high school seniors, football teams, stuff like that. But yeah, no, he had the market locked in that area for, I think, 15, 20 years. Anyway, let's get back to the $100,000 example. If you can realistically shoot 20 weddings a year and you want to make $100,000 a year, just take your $100,000 and divide it by 20. And that gives you $5,000 a wedding. That means your average wedding has to be at least $5,000. And not even your average wedding, your minimum wedding has to be $5,000. It doesn't have to be $1,500 or $2,000 or $2,500. It has to be $5,000. Now, if you only want to shoot 20 weddings a year and make $100,000, you have to charge at least $5,000. That's what I mean when I say your pricing has to be reverse engineered. You have to know the number you want to get to, then you hop backwards to see how to get there. So remember, figure out your income goal, divide it by the number of sessions or weddings you can have per year. Only you can tell yourself what those numbers should be. So that was a huge turning point in my career, right? I was trying to shoot 50 weddings a year at $1,000 because I knew that I need to make $50,000 a year to replace a job. And shooting 50 weddings at $1,000 a year wasn't going to happen very well. And I was ornery, upset, grumpy, exhausted doing that. And it was a bad idea. So if you check out my video about the 4 changes I made that allowed me to double my prices, once I made those changes, I went from $1,000 to $2,000, and I went from having to shoot 50 weddings a year to 25 weddings a year, right? And I ended up learning I could shoot 35, 40 and be comfortable. 34 actually was a good number for me back then. So anyway, step 3, you need to know the true cost of doing business. So let's talk about expenses. Your gear isn't free, your lenses aren't free, your camera's not free, your tripod, your flash, your film processing, your light modifiers if you have any, your hot lights, your cob lights, your flashlights. All of that stuff will eventually need replacing. And some of that stuff, film and film processing, is a continuous expense. You have to be factoring this stuff into your prices. You also have to factor things in like Lightroom, Photoshop, your CRM, customer relationship management software. I use Honeybook myself. What about your gallery hosting? I use PicTime. I used to use PixieSet. What about your website, your email marketing, and the list goes on. There's so many expenses and subscriptions that we have now that most of us don't even take into account. I remember I spoke to a photographer the other day. He said, my subscription expenses monthly are about $105. I told him just crunch the numbers anyway, use my pricing calculator. And he saw that his expenses weren't $100 a month for his subscriptions. With all the stuff that he pays per month to run his business, including his softwares and CRMs and all the stuff in the back ends, it was almost $400. And in the back of his mind, he thought it was $100. That's why it's so important that we have to know our true numbers. Also, you don't forget your insurance, your second shooter, advertising costs, gas, taxes, right? They're going to get you with taxes, I promise you. And then most importantly, there's your time. A single wedding isn't really just 8 hours, is it? You have the initial consultation, the engagement session, the travel, the editing time, the album design, the blog post, the delivery, the drive to the UPS store in LA traffic. So you can see from that a single wedding can easily take 20 to 40 hours of your life, and you need to be compensated for that time. So if you're charging $1,500 a wedding and it's taking you 40 hours of completion, that's $37 an hour before expenses. And after everything else we've talked about, you might be left with $15 an hour. It's not even worth it. And that's why so many photographers feel like they're busy, but they're broke. This is exactly why I created my photography pricing calculator. It takes all of this into account: your expenses, your capacity, your income goal. And it does the math for you so you don't have to guess at it and you can get it done quickly. Okay, step 4, building packages. This is kind of my favorite section. So now that you know your numbers, you can build profitable packages. And you know they're profitable because now you know what your minimum is. And there's 2 rules of thought in wedding or portrait pricing. There's the a la carte pricing method and the package or collection pricing method. I personally think an a la carte menu confuses a client. An a la carte menu is, for example, you have an 8-hour coverage, which is just your standard package. And we'll say that that's $5,000, right? That's our minimum wedding. And on top of that, you can add an engagement session, you can add an album. And the 2 rules of thought inside of a la carte is there is no discounting. It's $5,000 plus, for example, $500 more for this engagement session and $500 more for this album. Those are very low prices. I'm not saying charge that, but in this a la carte model together, that's $5,000 plus 5 and 5. So that's $6,000. That's the price. They take it or they leave it. Another a la carte option offer is the $5,000 wedding, same 8 hours. And then you also have the $500 engagement, the $500 album, but now they're discounted. When you piece more things together, you discount it 10 or 15 or 20 or 25%. The reason I don't like the a la carte model is because I think, and I've learned, that it confuses the client. So let's cover the pricing that I like, and that is collection pricing or packages. I like the 3-tier package system. You're gonna have your premium package, right? Which is everything and the kitchen sink, including the most time and everything else you can think of in there. That's gonna be your most expensive option. The middle package is going to have a lot of stuff in it, but not as much as the premium. And that's going to have less hours, say 10 versus 12. And that's going to have an album in it. That might also offer an engagement session in it. Then your third package, your base package or entry level, is really just going to be the basics, right? Actually, one of my packages is called the basics. Well, it was, I changed it now. So then that entry level is going to be at your minimum price, whatever that minimum price is for you. Maybe just 8 hours, maybe with an engagement session, but no album, or maybe just the wedding day, no engagement. You need to exclude things from packages to make them jump up to the next package. If they're all the same, other than the hours, I found that it's not necessarily enough to make them jump to the next package. And the whole point of this 3-tier package system is that most clients are going to pick the middle package. And that's what you want, because the middle package is the one that's designed to be the most profitable for you. Or you can add more things to each package to make it more enticing to jump from the basic to the middle, from the middle to the premium. You would add things like engagement sessions, parent albums, a larger album, maybe canvases, maybe prints. And the reason you want to do this is because you want a way for every client, even if they're at the basic or entry level price, to spend more and more money with you. Step 5, overcoming pricing fears. And to be honest with you, this is where I find a lot of photographers get stuck. And I know because I was stuck there too for quite a long time. Photographers will say to me, no one in my area is going to pay those prices. But here's the thing, you don't need everyone. You just need the right client. And you don't need 100 clients. You need 20. You need 15. You need 35, depending on your numbers that you crunched. You got to remember, there are people in every market that are willing and able to pay for quality, for experience, and professionalism. And if you don't have the experience, that's okay. Keep going, make it up with more professionalism, better customer service, faster turnaround times. Other things some photographers will say is, if I raise my prices, I'm going to lose bookings. And you know what? That's true. And I didn't lose the good clients. I just lost the bad ones. And the best part is I hope you do lose clients when you raise your price, because would you rather shoot 10 $5,000 weddings or 20 $2,500 weddings? The numbers are the same and you have to do twice as much work at $2,500. And the hardest one, I've been there myself, is I don't feel like I'm worth it. This is what you hear people talk about as imposter syndrome, right? I've been there too, right? I talk about it in my last video. I had to have a mental shift to who I am now. And let me tell you a secret. Your pricing isn't about self-worth. It's about sustainability and profitability. It has nothing to do with you. If your business isn't making money, it's not going to survive. And that doesn't help you, it doesn't help your family, and it doesn't help your clients. When you price your photography correctly, you're not just helping yourself, you're creating a business that can serve clients for years. And I've done this myself. I've shot high school graduate to college graduate to wedding, and soon the family comes. And now you have a new family to shoot. Mini sessions, Easter, holidays, etc. So let's recap. What's step one in getting your pricing dialed in? You have to start with your income goals. You have to know exactly what you need to make in order to survive, be profitable, and most of all, not survive. You need to know what you need to thrive. What is your ultimate number that you would love to have? Number two, factor in your realistic capacity. It's okay if you haven't shot 30 weddings a year, so maybe you don't know that you can do it. And if you do it and you see your turnaround time slowing down, you being in a bad mood, you being too stressed, we'll do less. And if you want to make the same amount of money, the only way to do less is to charge more, right? There's no and ifs or buts about it. That's what has to happen. Number three, know your true expenses. You can't just be running around there willy-nilly with your checkbook, doing whatever you want and not knowing what's coming in and what's coming out, when and where it's going, right? You have to know these numbers. Number four, build packages that are profitable. And like I said, I recommend the package and collection style of pricing because I find it less confusing for the client. And I've tested this. I've even tested sending my packages and talking on calls with clients with my a la carte attached to the PDF, and they're doing good until they see the a la carte. And then their brain starts mathing and they start doing this pre-calculation, looking at the a la carte, trying to add it up, trying to see what they save in the package. You don't want them to do any of that. Do not include the a la carte pricing with your main packaging PDF when you talk to your clients. If they ask for it, obviously give it to them, but not before that. And number five, I know it was the hardest for me, it might be the hardest for you too. You have to push past fear and charge what your business actually needs. And not just your business, what you actually need. So you can do all this with a notebook and a calculator and a pencil like I did when I first started out, but I want to save you some headaches. That's why I built my pricing calculator. All you had to do is plug in your expenses and your income goals, and it shows you exactly what you need to price your wedding or sessions at in order to be profitable. I'll leave a link in the description where you can grab it. And if you're serious about building a real business, subscribe and stick around. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you how I turn one wedding into dozens of portrait sessions every year, every wedding, like clockwork. I'll see you in the next one. Click the video right over here to watch that.